A life anchored in Denmark. Why Denmark's values and way of life keep us among the happiest. I live in Denmark. I am Danish. I speak Danish. Have you ever asked yourself why you are in the place and country you are in now and why you stay? I was born in Denmark. In the early years of my life, there were no thoughts of living anywhere else. As a child, you are often where your parents are. My parents were farmers and had no desire to travel. At least I never heard about it. My father traveled to the Netherlands as a part of his agricultural training when he was young. He brought back a few souvenirs, which stood like small shrines, decorating our home throughout my childhood. The most important one was the Dutch lamp, a fine little porcelain lamp with a yellowish shade. We definitely weren't supposed to touch it. We all knew that, and we took care of it. My parents went on vacation once during my childhood, a trip to Sweden where they visited Trollhättan. That was the only time my mother was outside the borders of Denmark. Even after they retired, they never traveled, even though they could afford it. They had sold the farm and had plenty of money in the bank. We never had that when we were children, and this frugality stayed with them for the rest of their lives. They preferred to invest the money in us, their children, so we received a little bit of money now and then. When I moved out, it was trendy to backpack around Europe. I visited many European countries: Germany, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, France, Spain, Italy, Greece, Sweden, Finland, and Norway. The journeys to these various countries were by train. There was time to reflect and meet many people in the train compartments. But I always ended up home in Denmark again. I completed my education, and my travels increasingly took me to Germany more than anywhere else. For a while, I lived in Norway and made good money as a nurse, one of the few countries in the world where a nurse is actually well rewarded for their vital work. However, I ended up home in Denmark again. During my travels in Germany, I also met my husband. I had toyed with the idea of moving to Germany and working as a nurse there. However, the working conditions for nurses and the salary in particular made it clear that I had no interest in helping the German healthcare system. It would be like jumping 100 years back in time compared to what a Danish nurse is expected to do and what a German nurse is even allowed to do. So I ended up home in Denmark once again. And so did my German husband. Do I stay in Denmark because it is convenient and because it is the easiest thing to do? Couldn't I, like my mother's cousin and his wife, pull up the stakes and move to the US of A and try my luck? They certainly did well in California, and it was a big event every year when a letter came to my grandmother for her birthday and Christmas from over there, where we heard about how the family was doing, the company they started, and how life in general was. They were doing well, fortunately, but they were also among other Danes in Solvang, the Danish town in California. However, this didn't inspire others in the family to try the same thing. I believe it's about fundamental feelings of belonging. This is where I was born. This is where the values of society and fellow citizens, however different they may be in political contest, align with the ones I also hold. Nationality, our monarchy, our flag and pride, our language, Our historical continuity, all the way back to the Cimbrians, a people who lived around 110 years before our era. They were warriors and traders, and together with the Teutons and Ambrones, campaigned against the Roman Empire. They must have been successful, because the Romans certainly never conquered Denmark. Later, these ancestors became the Vikings, and there's a certain pride in descending from them. We are one of the happiest people in the world. In 2023, we rank second, only surpassed by the Finns. But what makes us so happy and content with Denmark? Of course, we have different political issues, such as the green transition, immigration policy, and integration policy. Denmark is part of the Schengen Agreement in the EU, but interprets the rules more strictly than other countries. This has resulted in a more subdued influx of refugees. There are many opinions about this, but in reality, it has probably meant that the refugees who come have a better chance of integrating, just as we Danes have had the opportunity to integrate these other ethnic groups. But is that what makes us happier? Probably not. Is it the Danish concept of hygge that makes us happier? The ability to and attitude that there is something positive in a candle on the table, a good cup of coffee, or reading a good book. I'll write more extensively about hygge in another article. It is our free access to doctors and hospitals that makes it attractive to be Danish. In the late 1960s, the citizen-founded health insurance was abolished, and all health care expenses were covered through a collective payment via taxes. Those who earn a lot therefore pay more towards the public healthcare system than those who earn little, but in this way we all contribute what we can for a service that doesn't distinguish between Mr. Wealthy and Mrs. Pensioner, who only has enough for daily expenses. It certainly provides security to know that you can always receive treatment. Of course, waiting times for treatment are an entirely different problem, but I don't think it's much different elsewhere. We take good care of children in Denmark. There are nurseries, kindergartens, schools, and after-school care arrangements when the youngest can't be picked up by mom or dad directly after school due to work. For the Danes love to work. The unemployment rate is currently only 2.9%. Men and women work. 72.8% of women are employed, and the percentage for men is probably about 3% higher. I haven't been able to find this number. And Danes love their work, as more and more choose to retire later than the official retirement age. In Denmark, children must attend school or receive education in another way. This is stated in the Constitution, but we go further because primary education is one thing, but education is something entirely different. Education is also free: high school, university, and vocational training. Everyone has an equal opportunity to get an education. This certainly contributes to the fact that we have some of the world's best know-how in Denmark, and make citizens happier because they can engage in what they are interested in, or change direction and pursue a different education. Is it our location that makes us happy? The small country with so much water around it, beaches, and a population density of only 140 people per square kilometer. You can easily find a place to be alone without disturbing others, or being disturbed by others. We are not a tropical paradise and have a very different weather, which has changed in recent years to be wetter and windier. On the other hand, this also means that winters are not so harsh as they used to be. And no, there are no polar bears roaming around in Denmark. We have a coastal climate, not a continental climate. I can't explain why we are so happy in Denmark. I can only state that I choose to stay in Denmark. There are so many advantages and opportunities in our little country. We are technologically well equipped with lighting fast internet through fiber optic cables, and paper is almost entirely abolished. Positive-minded people who take care of each other and engage with each other without prying. A public system that takes care of the weak and the vulnerable, the sick and those with special needs. We have work and resources in terms of know-how. We have secure supplies of food and clean water, good wages and labor unions that fight for proper conditions, a flourishing cultural life. I will protect and keep all this in my life until the day I am no longer here. The Danpreneur is a reader-supported publication. To receive posts and support my work, consider becoming a free or a paid subscriber. Thank you, and my biggest excuse for my Danish pronunciation and a few errors in the reading.